This is the Practical Homeopathy Podcast, episode number 123 with Joette Calabrese.
This is Joette Calabrese, and I welcome you to our healthcare movement, yours, mine, and the countless men and women across the globe who have retaken control of their family's health with practical homeopathy. So, for the next few minutes, let's link our arms together and embrace healthcare freedom. Join me as I demystify homeopathy, what was once considered an esoteric paradigm, into an understandable, reproducible, safe, and effective healthcare solution available to all. This is the medicine you've been searching for. My unique brand of homeopathy called Practical Homeopathy. Now, whether you've tried homeopathy in the past or were frustrated, or you're examining the possibilities of caring for your family yourself for the first time, you're in the right place. In this podcast, I'll offer you my decades of clinical experience as a practicing homeopath and years of teaching tens of thousands of students so that you can become the hero of your family and community. This is true health freedom, my friends. This is my practical homeopathy.
Hi, Joette. We're here in another podcast, and I want to know what's on your mind. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, Kate. A couple of things. I like to be able to discuss things that I think are going to be the most useful for the largest number of people. One of the things I want to talk about is how long does it take for a remedy to act? I hear it often. And given this background, that there are thousands of conditions. Some say there are about 6,000 to 10,000 human sufferings, diseases. Maybe it's closer to 6,000. And there are just about equally the same number of homeopathic medicines. Now, we're not going to cover all of these human conditions, and we're certainly not going to be talking about 6,000 homeopathic medicines. But given that there's such a grand landscape, we have to get what can seem complex because it's so voluminous and focus it down so that it makes it easier. And so when someone asks me, how long does it take for a homeopathic medicine to act? It depends on a number of factors. The first one is this condition that the person is about to approach an acute or is it a chronic? And that really matters. Now, sometimes, it's a species of both, but let's not go with the outlier. Let's go with something that's pretty obvious. For example, you're driving home and you're in the car and suddenly, here's the key word, suddenly you feel ill. Something's wrong. Feels like maybe I caught something, that kind of feeling. Like I feel as though something's going on in my sinuses or my chest and I feel weakened. And, you were just caught in the rain the day before or the night before. And it feels as though you're going to be strapped with a flu or a cold or something. That is an acute. Because if you left it alone, you would not have it if you took nothing and you just went to bed when you got home, which is not a bad idea. But if you did nothing, it's not going to live with you for the rest of your life. It's going to be over with in a few days or a week or maybe 2 weeks, but it will be over with. That is one of our definitions of an acute. If, on the other hand, you're driving home and you're seated in your car and your back is aching like it always does when you sit in your car for any length of time, and you can feel that it's kind of arthritic in your hips and in your knees and in your back, that is generally, if it's happened time and again, and it's for the most part, every time you get in your car, it occurs, that tells us that it's likely a chronic. And it could be muscle weakness, it could be arthritis, could be tendon pain, etc. So if we have an acute condition, generally speaking, and we use a homeopathic medicine to treat it, it works pretty quickly because the disease is not going to last very long. The condition is not going to last long anyway, even if you did nothing. So our expectation is that within a few doses, the person can start feeling somewhat better. And when I said earlier, when I described it, that it came on suddenly, the first remedy I think of when someone feels something suddenly coming on, when it feels like a cold or flu is coming on, chesty, throaty, sinusy, ears, etc., I think of Aconitum 200. In fact, I have Aconitum 200 in my purse at all times. It's the only remedy that I carry with me, always. I mean, I might carry others if something else is going on for my husband or me, but generally that's the only single medicine that I carry with me. So one could take that every couple of hours and assume that within a short amount of time, how much time? Could be sometimes someone takes the remedy Aconitum and they feel better within, half an hour. Other times they take Aconitum and they need to continue taking it, say, every few hours or so. And it takes a few doses, 2, 3, 4 doses, and they start improving. So that's for an acute. Now let's go back to the chronic. Now let's talk about that person who has arthritis. Let's label it arthritis. Let's not talk about it as a muscular or tendon issue. It's the joints and the knees and the hips and the back. It's an arthritic sensation, and it's worse upon sitting too long. And once the person gets out of the car, then she or he feels like they're creaky. And once they get moving, now they get going. And okay, now they feel better once they start moving about. But once they get back into the car again, it doesn't take long before that achiness can start again. Now we would use a medicine, for example, like Rhus Tox. And we would use it in a 30th potency, sometimes a 200, but more often we would use it in a 30th potency. And we're not taking it for that moment in time because when she gets out of the car, because once she's out of the car and starts moving about, she limbers up and the pain is gone. No, what we're doing with this instead is using it twice daily, 12 hours apart, because we know that she suffers from this every day. Every time she gets into the car, every time she gets out of bed in the morning, every time she's seated on the sofa reading to her children, she gets up, or to her grandchildren. It's more likely to be an older woman. This happens. We don't use it at that moment. That would do it no good. Instead, we know it's chronic, so we would use it twice daily for many days. How long does it take? Well, sometimes it only takes a couple doses, Monday and Tuesday, and the deed is done. That means that when she gets out of the chair, gets out of the car, gets out of bed, that pain is pretty much gone. But we might need to repeat it from time to time. So twice a day for a few days. If that does it, then she stops. Then a week later, she notices it's kind of creeping back in again. She does it again, twice a day for a few days. So if that's the case and she finds it keeps creeping back in again, once she stops, it might behoove her to take it twice a day, every day for, say, a month, and now assess it. Instead of assessing it after 2 or 3 days, she's assessing it after a month or 2. And if she's much improved, she does not carry on with the medicine. She stops it once again, but she's pushed it a little bit further this time. So now we've dealt with a chronic that we can probably see she'll get relief from having used Rhus Tox 30 twice daily or 200, depending on how severe. If it's much more severe than the little bit that I'm describing, 200 twice a day can do a lot of good as well. But we don't carry on with it. The beauty of homeopathy is that its goal is to uproot. Will it uproot to perfection? There's no such thing as perfection. So don't expect to feel perfect. Instead, expect to feel relatively improved.
Well, something else always creeps in, then, right? You take care of one thing and then...
Oh, yeah. And then a Zamboni comes rushing at you on an ice rink and you get smashed like a mosquito. So, yeah, there's always something else. So you can forget about Rhus Tox 30 or 200 twice daily. In a couple months, you forget all about it. Oh, my gosh, it's gone. In fact, a lot of times people don't even notice it's gone because the reminder is the suffering. And if we don't have that reminder, we're just living our lives and not realizing until perhaps it comes back again or something else. Oh my gosh, look how limber I am. I'm able to get up out of a chair more readily. I can go up and down the stairs. I can pop out of bed like a piece of toast out of a toaster. I can really move my body again. But if it comes back, and my friends, if you have a propensity for this to occur, indeed, it may come back. But when it does, we're not going to say, oh no, now what? No, we know what to do. We use exactly the same medicine in exactly the same fashion. And most likely when it does return, it's a lesser suffering. It's instead of that creaky and achiness that used to be, say, a 6 or a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. Now when it returns, it's just a whisper. It's a little cameo appearance of maybe a 3, worthy of taking the medicine again, perhaps for a while. I know people, including myself, I might add, who have had to take Roostox from time to time, and I no longer have to do that any longer. It's gone. At my age, my friends, my contemporaries, if they're not using homeopathy, if they've not figured out how to do this yet, are suffering from what I'm just describing to you, and I am not. Very occasionally, if I really work arduously in the garage and really clean hard and long and pick up this and move that and rake the leaves and do a lot of work all in one day, then indeed I may need it again, a couple doses, and I'm right as rain. And so how long does it take? I just gave you the entire scenario. It can take an hour. It can take 5 hours. It can take 2 or 3 days. It can take a week or 2 of using a medicine. Sometimes it even needs to be taken longer than that. How long it takes for a chronic condition depends on the person, the extent of the suffering, the abuse even of their own body, and the condition. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. Because things like chronic allergies, that could take a year or longer to uproot, possibly.
It could. Then again, I've seen allergies addressed within a week, right. Even lifelong allergies. It's gone. And if we use a combination medicine for the acute condition, the acute symptoms that happen to present, such as lacrimation, watery eyes, and itchy eyes, and swelling, and runny nose and sniffling, and we use a medicine like arsenicum, or we even use Allergy-Com by boron or something like that, we can see that abated within a day. Mm-hmm. Now, to get to the bottom of it, not unlike what you're referring to, Kate, to get to the bottom of it, yes, it may take up to as long as a year to see that the allergies are subdued. And I don't mean suppressed. Suppressed is different. Suppression comes from drugs of commerce that are synthetic. These are not synthetic. They are not patented. These are medicines that are made from nature. They just happen to be diluted and succussed in such a mathematical, pharmacological, and intelligent way that it stimulates the body's natural ability to cure itself.
I guess I was thinking about food allergies specifically. Do you see that those take a little longer to uproot than a seasonal allergy?
Sometimes food allergies can take longer because most food allergies, my friends, are really the effects of being poisoned. What kind of poison might I be talking about? Are we talking about food that's poisoning? No, antibiotic poisoning. Antibiotics might kill the infection or might be the preventative for a potential infection, but the poisoning of antibiotics causes food intolerances. We are not supposed to have food intolerances, my friends. We're supposed to be able to eat wheat, even though it's not the best wheat in this country, in the U.S. I realize that. It's highly processed and even, it's GMO, et cetera, et cetera. We should be able to withstand even that. Not that I want you to eat that. I would like to see that removed from the market completely in our country. But until it is, we should be able to withstand it from time to time. But we can't because the gut has been denatured. It's been tinkered with. It's been, tinker sounds like it's just like, gentle little events. But an antibiotic is not a gentle little effect. An antibiotic is like napalm. It's like an atomic bomb in the stomach. Just because someone doesn't have nausea or vomiting or diarrhea shortly after doesn't mean that antibiotic is not doing great damage. Now, having said that, there are times when an antibiotic can be useful. So we save that. We save the need for an antibiotic for times when there is no choice. If you're in an automobile accident and a lot of surgery has to be performed and infections are ensuing and you don't have access to a homeopathic hospital, which is the way we must live in this country at this time in history, then indeed you are going to need antibiotics. So we don't want to take them for every little other issue, such as those acutes that homeopathy can treat, such as an ear infection or a strep throat or a urinary tract infection or a laceration. We save the use of an atomic bomb for when there is something that is truly potentially life-threatening. Those conditions I just mentioned, my friends, with the use and the understanding of how to use these medicines and owning them, owning the knowledge and the remedies in your hands, can save you, can protect you against the use of a drug that will cause food intolerances and other gut issues.
I'm wondering if you can share your thoughts on or your tips on how a person can remember to take the correct medicine. So say you know the condition, you know the protocol, and you know you're supposed to take it every day, say twice a day. What do you tell your clients about how they can remember to take this? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're not consistent in taking your medicines for this chronic condition, you may not see the results as if you were consistent.
Well, the best way is to suffer. The suffering reminds you, oh my gosh, this is really painful or really uncomfortable, or I don't like the way I feel. Oh yeah, that's right. I've got to take my homeopathic medicine. That is the best way to remember. But let's say you're moving along and you need to go just a little further and you'd forgotten that you're going to get some indigestion if you don't take the medicines that are specific to help uproot the food intolerances. Then you buy a couple of doses of the same medicine, perhaps, and keep one dose by the bedside and another dose on your desk. And sometimes, you know how when you have things arranged on your bedside, your clock and, maybe, I don't know, your lamp, those kinds of things. And after a while, if you keep the remedy there, you don't see it anymore because it becomes a part of the way the room is arranged. So instead, when you take it before you go to bed at night, instead of putting it back in a place where you might not notice it, put it on the floor right in front of you so that when you step on the floor, you see it. You'll step on it. You pick it up when you see it because it doesn't belong on the floor, and then you take it at that moment. You can do that right there in the bedroom. You can put it on the floor in front of the sink in the bathroom. Put your remedies in an unusual place that would force you to have to pick them up. It'd force you to notice them because they're in a slightly different place than they ought to be. I hope that helps.
That's great information, Joette. Great tips. What else would you like to say to wrap up this podcast?
The only other thing I would like to say is, my friends, homeopathy cannot help you if you don't have the knowledge or you don't know where to look it up because, you don't know that I have a blog that has all the names of, not all, but many names of many conditions and their appropriate remedies. And you don't own the medicines. So you can't own necessarily every single homeopathic medicine, but you ought to know what the main medicines are for your family. And then not only own the medicines, but own the knowledge of where to find the information so that you're not frightened or overwhelmed and forced to fall back on the synthetic, the suppressing, the drugs that we are all so ardently trying to get away from.
And this is just a little taste of the things that you teach in the academy, because as you were talking about these expectations, I kept thinking about the lessons that you do in the academy, and we actually have titled them Expectations. So you go much further. There's much more to be said on this topic.
Well, there's always more. It never ends. Right? I still read every day. In fact, I'm going to be posting soon. I think I've got 11 books that I plan on reading this summer, and I've already started into 3 of them. So it never ends. We must always be curious. We must always be learning and growing and even changing our thinking. Be willing to realize that maybe I was thinking about that incorrectly, and I think I'll arrange it a little differently in my thinking and my life.
All right. Great to talk to you today, Joette.
Yeah, it's always good to talk with you too, Kate. Take care. It's my honor to share as many practical homeopathy protocols for simple conditions as I can for free, without affiliates or advertising, here in my podcasts, blog posts, and Monday Night Lives. But it's critical that you learn how to use these medicines properly. These podcasts should serve as only the beginning of your training. So peruse joetteslearningcenter.com to find fun study group opportunities and in-depth courses developed by subject. Because with the proper training, you can join the thousands of students before you in developing the confidence and competence to protect the health of your family and loved ones with my brand of homeopathy, Practical Homeopathy.
You just listened to a podcast from internationally acclaimed homeopath, public speaker, and author, the founder of the Academy of Practical Homeopathy, Joette Calabrese. Joette's podcasts are available on all your favorite podcast apps. To learn more and find out if homeopathy is a good fit for your health strategy, visit practicalhomeopathy.com.